Well, welcome everybody. Hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Renee Miller from the Oregon Bioscience Incubator and OTRADI, and welcome to this Lunch and Learn on best practices for FDA, or excuse me, this is for SBIR support programs. So while we get settled, here are some housekeeping items. Please, if you would keep your microphone on mute, and feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and use the chat for questions, and we'll cover the questions. Jordana, would you like to cover the questions as we go or at the end?
As we go is fine if you're able to track the chat while I talk.
I'll do it. Okay, so if you have questions for Jordana as we go, please use the chat to ask your questions, and then I will interject during her presentation, and then she'll be able to answer those as we go. I'm going to pop my LinkedIn in the chat. Please feel free to connect with me there. Do that right now. Put that in the chat. Great. Okay. And also, I want to put in the chat the link to the Portland Indian Leaders Roundtable, Leading with Tradition. It's a really interesting document to read about the history of the land in our area. So there is a link to that. Great. Well, in this Lunch and Learn, you're going to learn about the Oregon Innovation Council, which is often referred to as Oregon Inc., which oversees Business Oregon's innovation programs. They have a variety of resources to support innovators to take new technologies from idea to market. And today you're going to learn about two of their SBIR support programs. And I will also put a link to that in the chat for you. There you go, so you can check it out. And it's my pleasure to introduce Jordana Barclay. Jordana is an innovation strategist at Business Oregon, where she manages a variety of innovation-focused programs to support science and technology companies. Prior to Business Oregon, Jordana created and supported local and statewide industry-led partnerships focused on workforce development. Jordana has over 20 years experience in developing and implementing programs that support businesses, innovators, and communities. She has a bachelor's degree from Wake Forest University and a master's degree from the University of Michigan. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Jordana. You have the floor. Thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you, Renee. Okay, I'm going to pull up my presentation here. And oops. Here we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here, and I'm happy to take questions as I go. Of course, keeping in mind that the next slide may answer your question, but always happy to do that. And then, of course, at the end, just as a quick reminder, I'll provide information briefly on Business Oregon and Oregon Inc., but primarily speaking about Business Oregon's SBIR matching grant. And this is information that's effective today. Things are always subject to change with any type of program such as these. So I will include my contact information, and any official changes will be on the website where the grant application has been posted. So I'll go ahead and get started here. Okay. So just briefly wanted to give a high-level overview of Business Oregon. I think most of you know, but just in case you don't, we are the state economic development agency. We have around 170 staff, predominantly in Salem, but many of us are based in Portland, such as myself. And then we've got staff throughout the state to have ears on the ground about regional issues. We have 3 divisions and 10 teams, so we do a really wide variety of things at the agency, from broadband, infrastructure, support, community development block grants, just a wide variety of things. Obviously, I'm focused on innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm on the INE team, and our focus really is around economic prosperity, stimulating investment, and creating high quality jobs. So we've got a lot of different initiatives around INE. This is just a handful. Some of the alphabet soup, if you've heard of any of these programs or acronyms, we have many more, but if you're interested in learning more about any of these on the slide or others that you come across, please check out our website or feel free to shoot me an email. We have lots of different initiatives focused on both innovation, entrepreneurship, and both of those combined. So most of the innovation work at the agency is really driven by the Oregon Innovation Council, as Renee shared, often called Oregon Inc. This is a public-private partnership that is under the umbrella of Business Oregon, but is really responsible for providing guidance to the state around innovation. They oversee the implementation of Oregon's 10-year innovation plan. That was the most current one was created in 2021 through 2031, and all of the activities that we do related to innovation are recommendations and aligned with that plan. So Oregon Inc. has been around since 2005. At that time, really focused on commercializing emerging technologies. We continue to focus on that and all of the related activities that are included in the innovation plan. We are on a biennial budget cycle tied to state legislature funding. So our current cycle is 2023, so July of this year through June of 2025. So that budget was around $18 million for all of our innovation programs. Might sound like a lot of money, might not, depending on your context and perspective, but that funding is actually flat from the prior biennium. So considering the amount of programs that we have and that we provide directly to funds directly to businesses, that's, you know, that little bit can go a long way. So these data or these statistics are probably about 9 months out of date, but still provide, I hope, a really accurate overview of the impact that the council has had in terms of its programs and number of companies supported, and just dollars that have been brought into the state and helping economic development in the state, and just for the benefit of people and companies that are here, leveraging additional funds, using labs and lab space such as at ONAMI, and just a variety of different activities across the state. So here is just a real quick slide on the program, the main programs that we have going for this biennium, just so you have a sense of the scope. So we have Centers of Innovation Excellence, which ONAMI / OBI is one of those, just recently awarded that designation and funding. And Centers of Innovation Excellence are really focused on building that pipeline, bringing research to the marketplace, commercializing new technology, and we've got multiple sectors that these CIEs are focused on. The Commercialization Gap Fund is an investment fund where the state of Oregon is a limited partner investing directly in early stage science and technology companies. I've previously done a webinar on the Gap Fund. We are just finishing up deploying Fund 2, and we'll probably start up deploying funds for Fund 3 spring of next year. We're in the process of selecting a fund manager for Fund 3. Regional innovation hubs, which are partnerships that provide technical assistance to science and technology-based companies, throughout the state and really focus on building an innovation ecosystem throughout the state, and then local, regional innovation ecosystems on a regional level, but innovation infrastructure throughout the state, so that science and technology companies have ways to access innovation resources, no matter where you are in the state. The SBIR support program, which of course I will talk about. And then strategic communications is not necessarily a program, but it is an important strategy of our 10-year innovation plan. And we set aside a teeny tiny amount of money to make sure that we're telling the Oregon innovation, this says studies, but it's really about telling the Oregon innovation story, and how Oregon is a great place to be innovative and start and grow your innovation company. So now on to the good stuff. So our SBIR support program has two components. We've got the application support and then the matching grants. So I will spend most of my time talking about the matching grants, but we'll briefly touch on the application support. So this program was brought kind of under the Oregon Inc. umbrella in 2017. It previously was kind of in a different part of the agency. This was funded at 2.3 this biennium, and unfortunately I see a typo. That should be June 30th of 2025. So apologies for that. I'll correct that before I send the slides out to Renee. And they specifically apply to the federal funds, SBIR and STTR. And if you are just kind of a newbie to those federal programs, I highly recommend the www.sbir.gov website, which is obviously a federal website, but it's fairly well done. The information is pretty useful and accessible, and does explain the process pretty well. So if you are newer to this world, I definitely suggest checking that out. So our application support program is a small grant up to $5,000 to help companies write the grant application. So there's multiple federal agencies that offer these SBIR or STTR grants, and it depends on their priorities and funding, and the amount of funding they have set aside for it depends upon the agency. So you really need to do your research in terms of what they are looking for, but we want to make sure that these opportunities are available to Oregon companies, and so we provide this this grant amount to help with that. So as you can see on the slide, most people use those funds to pay a grant writer, but there is some flexibility around that, except for you cannot use it to pay for existing company staff costs. This is a pretty straightforward application, and rolling applications are accepted. So we opened that last month, and we will accept applications essentially until the dollars run out. So because we have that biennium timeline with our funding, my recommendation is, if you are planning on applying, you would like one of these grants to apply, and you're thinking of requesting funds in June of 2025, the likelihood that we'll have funds at that point is pretty low, because that's the end of our funding cycle. So just keep that in mind, but we generally have the funds for most of the biennium. We have on the slide there, about 35 to 40. Just so people know, we've, I think, awarded 3 right now in the first month that's been out. And, these things always kind of ebb and flow depending on the variety of federal agencies that put these awards out. My colleague, Sally Bell, actually manages the application grant. So in this whole process, so I included her contact info here, so you can contact her if you have any specific questions around that process, because the rest of this presentation will be focused on the matching grants.
Jordana?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but
No.
we have a question. Where is a good place to find a grant writer for these,
I don't know the answer to that question. That would be a great question to ask Sally.
Okay.
Not to punt that down the road, because that is an excellent question, but I don't know the answer.
I can hop in really fast. I used to be a grant writer and have hung up my hat, but a great place is on Fiverr, Fiverr. You can vet a lot of different providers. There's many different cost categories. You can get examples of their work, and it's a really great place to find a good writer.
Thank you. That's great to know.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Okay, so on to the SBIR matching grant. So, and just a little aside, obviously this applies to both SBIR and STTR, but that becomes quite a handful. So I generally will just call it matching grant on the slide. It might just say SBIR, but this applies to both. Sometimes the federal agency folks will call them SBIR and STTR, but I don't like that version either. So try to keep it as short and simple. The intent of this program is really to ensure we've got additional non-dilutive capital available to companies, innovation-focused companies in the state, and encourage their growth and continued development, and obviously long-term, create jobs, hire people at excellent wages. That's, of course, ultimately the goal of economic development. And then also recognizing that the federal SBIR funding does not cover everything. And so this program attempts to address those gaps and fill in where they don't cover. So eligibility is you must be a traded sector business, and we've got a definition that's included in the request for grant applications. And this is a very common definition, but that goods and services are moving across state lines essentially. You must be an Oregon-based business, and our definition is greater than 50% of employees located in the state. Registered with the Oregon Secretary of State, and then obviously meet the federal guidelines as well, which you cannot receive a matching grant until you've received the federal grant. So we're assuming you would have met those guidelines already, but their guidelines are fairly straightforward. Fewer than 500 employees. They've got some U.S. residents and citizenship requirements, but they're pretty straightforward. So essentially how the program works is once you have received one of those federal SBIR grants, you can then apply to our process. There are different levels of the SBIR. There's a phase 1, phase 2, and something called a fast track. And so for if you've received a phase 1, we can provide up to $50,000 to match that grant, and up to $100,000 if you received a phase 2 or a fast track grant. Another piece is the amount requested, the amount that we can match cannot be greater than 50% of your overall federal grant. So, for example, if you got a $90,000 phase 1, the most you could receive on our matching grant would be $45,000. So I just currently realize that language may not be included in our request for grant application. So addendum will be issued around that if that is unfamiliar to you. So this is a competitive program. We've got it's not rolling applications like with the application grant. We recently opened to receive applications last week. I believe that was last week. Yes, on the 18th. And it is open until October 30th. We generally run about 2 to 3 rounds per biennium. I anticipate it probably will just be 2 this biennium. We tend to add a third if we've got additional funds or there's a significant requests and things like that. But I'm guessing it will probably be just 2. So because the matching grant application is tied to receipt of your federal grant, if you do not have one of those at this point, but are anticipating one maybe in January or in the spring, we will have another round tentatively planned for fall of 2024. And then this program is, as you saw, has been in place since at least 2017. So I don't anticipate it going anywhere. It tends to be pretty popular, both with companies, and it aligns very much so with the vision of the 10-year innovation plan. So keep that in mind. I anticipate around 15 to 18 awards each round. I will put, a zillion caveats around that. That is dependent upon number of applications we receive, quality of applications, the asks. So if we receive way more phase 2 requests than phase 1, obviously that uses up more of our pot of funds. But just as an FYI, that just some people like to know like how many we award. But as in terms of how many applications we receive, that really significantly varies just depending on timing. So, but the current applications are being accepted now through October 30th. So you do have time on this current opening. So I'm frequently asked, what kinds of things can we submit a request for? So obviously it would, we want to see it align with your federal grants and, covering things that are not covered through there. But just on the slide, you can see some examples of projects that we have received requests and funded over the years. Very popular, I guess, would be completing an MVP. Often there's not funds for that. Additional equipment or specialty equipment, business development, of course, customer outreach, just marketing around your product. IP protection, of course, is often a critical step in commercializing your product. I did include facilities for expansion here. Those often tend to be pretty high price tags, but we have funded some things around that in the past. But keep in mind the $50,000 and $100,000 maximum requirement that we have. And if you have a particular project idea that you are thinking about or something that you need to accomplish that you would like to do with this matching grant and it's not on this bullet list, that's completely fine. These are just examples. This is not limited to this. Just make sure that you read the request for grant applications, really thoroughly to ensure that you're aligning with that. But it's not limited to anything on here. So tips. So I mentioned earlier about number of awards that we provide each round. It definitely is competitive, but less competitive than the SBIR federal ones. Obviously, you're not competing nationwide, so those can be particularly challenging. The success rate, you see some percentages there. It really does depend on the round, again, on number of applications we receive, quality, etc. There does, just anecdotally, there has seemed to be quite a high level of interest for this particular round. Got lots of inquiries on this before we opened it up. So I anticipate a lot of applications this round, but again, it's hard to really say. The other tip I would say is make sure that you're really balancing the technical and the commercial aspects. We don't want just a research report. How is your project going to move the needle to get your product closer to the market and move your company forward? And on that same, in that same vein, I also really encourage you to use accessible and understandable verbiage, and language. So understanding that, a lot of what you all are doing is very complex science and technology focused work, and we definitely don't want you to dumb anything down, but also don't want it to be a straight research paper, because if we can't even understand, if the reviewers can't understand what you're really trying to do, it makes it a harder barrier to kind of get over in terms of awarding funding. So things to keep in mind is finding that balance between all those different things. We do have a review committee that consists of Business Oregon staff, Oregon Inc. members, and outside reviewers as well, and all have technical expertise in a variety of different areas. So it's, again, doesn't need to be written to, any particular, 4th grade level or anything like that, but just keep that in mind. The full evaluation criteria are in the request for grant applications, but you know, the major factors really are, you know, who's on the team, do they, you know, have the expertise to accomplish what you are planning to accomplish, the technology that you are, you know, trying to move forward, and then how you're approaching that, of course. Please be sure that you are tying your project that you're asking us for funds to your federal SBIR. So that may seem obvious, but sometimes we do get requests to do something tangentially related to commercialization, but maybe it's not related. Maybe it's another product that your company has, or it's just not as closely related, but your project to requesting these funds need to be tied clearly to the funds that you're getting from your federal award. So that's a really key component. And then we have a new FAQ that is posted on our SBIR website that has kind of high-level questions that we've gotten frequently over the years of managing this program. So please take a look at that to see if your question has been answered through that. If not, email me. I am accepting questions through the dates in the document. I want to say through like October 25th. And then I also, excuse me, I'll put a link in the chat. It's also in the document. You can schedule an office hour appointment with me to ask any questions. I do want to be clear that I can't, you know, you can't ask, should I apply? Because those are questions I'm not able to answer in our office hours. But if they're, you know, clarification questions on their request for grant applications, or I recently got a question about, do we qualify as an Oregon business, things like that. Feel free to shoot me an email or set up a time to talk through that. Also note that any questions that are received through email or in office hours are documented, and then it will be included in updates and FAQ updates so that everyone has the same information. So that is all I have. I don't know if I talked too fast or if there's questions in the chat, but hopefully it's pretty straightforward, and you have my contact information there for questions, and I'm also happy to take questions now and answer them to the best of my ability.
Thank you so much, Jordana. We really appreciate it. So if you do have questions, go ahead and unmute yourself, or try to do this without talking over one another, but hopefully we can do this one at a time. I'm curious as to the timeline. If somebody submits an application for a matching grant, how long does that usually take?
Yes, great question. So all applications will be reviewed at the same time. So after the closing date of October 30th, and then we will have a review process, and then award announcements will be made. I need to double check on my timeline, but I believe award announcements will be made sometime in November. And then it does take November to early December, I believe. And then there will be, you know, kind of some back and forth in terms of the contract development. The time that takes is variable depending on how responsive you are, what we have going on in terms of our contract queue at the agency. But my hope is that these projects can get up and running fairly early into 2024. So, you know, with any public entity, there's, you know, things on the back end in terms of contract, getting that set up and everything. But we try to make that as painless as we possibly can. And then your project, you know, can go from there. This is less of an issue for this particular round, but if you're considering for the subsequent for the 2024 possibly fall round, we do prefer projects that end when the biennium ends in June of 2025. Occasionally we can do extensions, but that is something to keep in mind in terms of your project length.
Okay, great. I'm just curious, down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should have reactions, or you could raise your hand. I'm curious how many people on this call have received an SBIR or STTR grant in the past. I'm seeing some reactions happening. So some folks have, or they haven't found the button at the bottom. Sometimes this Zoom will move things around and then we can't find them again. So yeah, there's quite a few folks who have, so that's good to know. And okay, so put your hands down. How many are planning to apply for an SBIR, STTR grant in the next year or so? Quite a few. Yep, quite a few. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you. I was just out of curiosity, Jordana, you may have your hands full with applications here.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if there's also anyone who has previously got one of our matching grants. I'm trying to look through the participants, see if I recognize any names or companies.
Kyle.
Oh yeah. Ken is here from Stone Stable. Yes.
Looks like we've got Doug Kawahara.
Yeah, quite a few of you. Great. So for those that have previously applied or received, this is has not substantially changed from prior years. So you should be fairly familiar with the process, just kind of tweaking things here and there, but it has not significantly changed. It's a very popular and successful program, so we're excited to keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. And we're very grateful that Oregon has these support programs for startups, for companies that can really use these funds. Absolutely. And you said you have a link to a one-on-one scheduling with you?
Yes, let me pull that up. Not put it in the chat. So hopefully, I'm doing, this is a new thing, this bookings, it's similar to Calendly. So hopefully no one will have any issues. If you have any issues with that link, just feel free to email me. But it does help my sanity a little bit if people can schedule that way, but always happy to chat with folks.
I had another question come through to me. How do you select your reviewers?
That's a great question. So, well, as I mentioned, we've got some Business Oregon staff, me, of course, and then probably my colleagues that also help support other Oregon Inc. programs, Sally Bell and Mark Brady, Oregon Inc. members. We usually have, 2 to 3 of those. And then, as I mentioned, partners. So people in this and technology commercialization, maybe from universities, people with sector expertise in science or technology. So they're subject matter experts or experts in commercialization, often have applied for SBIRs previously. Occasionally we will have some company, business folks, but that's a little more challenging in terms of conflict of interest. But we try to have a diverse array in terms of expertise, and also geography and demographics as much as we're able as well.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of applications from our rural areas of Oregon?
Honestly, no, but we are hoping to see a greater increase. And part of the intent around our Regional Innovation Hub program is to have more innovation assistance and resources in parts of the state beyond Portland, where they, of course, have historically been focused. So we, always encourage that and try to get the word out as much as possible. It's not to say we haven't. We have funded a few. I'd have to pull up our list, but they do tend to primarily be focused in the major areas of Bend, Portland, Eugene, and Corvallis, with the connections with the universities, but they have not always been in those spaces. And we certainly, it's open and available to all within Oregon.
That's great to know. And we will be posting a link to this recording on our website and on our YouTube channel. And so feel free to share with folks all over the state because this is a statewide resource.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Are there any other questions out there? Don't be shy. I'm not seeing any come through the chat at the moment, but oh, Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Jordana and Renee. Is there a standard format for the applications?
Yes, so the link to the request for grant applications is on our website, and there is an application form that you'll need to complete. And in the request for grant applications, it also describes how you need to respond in terms of project description. There's a 6-page limit. We've got a budget template, a 2-page limit for team bios. So all that information is included in there, and that way it makes it a little simpler to to do the review and process. And I can put a link to that if you don't already have that. Let's see here. Okay, I'll put this. This is a link to our SBIR support program page. Information on here includes both the application support and the matching grant. It's a little bit confusing, so but if you look on the left-hand side, there is a column for additional resources, and hopefully it's clear. There's a couple documents for the application support, and then there's 4 documents for the matching grant. So that spells out kind of the format and the approach to take.
Great, thank you. We had another question in the chat. Who are the program area managers?
In regards to, I'm not sure.
Molly, do you want to open up your microphone and elaborate on your question?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's program area managers that are tailored to the sections within the, I think it's the SBIR grant. You know, if you're applying for the innovation through EPA versus through ag, for example.
Oh, so I don't know, because those are all federal programs. My best recommendation would be to go to the SBIR.gov website, and from there you can find the different agency solicitations, and they often will have contact information. Also on our website, under additional resources, there's a link to Virtue Labs, SBIR, STTR assistance. So they have a federal grant to help companies apply for this federal funding, and they can often direct you to federal staff that can assist with that.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Great. Everybody's got great questions today. Any other questions that are coming up as we've gone along? I'm not seeing any currently.
Hopefully that means my presentation was thorough and covered everything.
Thorough covered everything. You might get some email questions along the way.
Jordana, I had a company reach out and ask, they haven't fully been awarded the SBIR federal grant, but they're in process. Is that make them applicable to this, or do they need to be fully awarded?
Yeah, so and that is, I can't remember if that's in our FAQ or not. If not, I need to add it, because that is definitely a frequently asked question. So if you've received notice that you have it, but not the official documentation, I would go ahead and just shoot me an email and let me know what you have received documentation wise. But generally, if you can proceed, but you will need to have some kind of document for the federal agency before we can go into contract with you. So some of it will depend on your level of comfort with that, and how confident you feel that this has been awarded and it really is just a matter of paperwork, because we will need to see that if you are awarded our grant before we can go into contract. But we have had a situation or situations in the past where a company has received kind of unofficial notice but hadn't received the documentation because the federal agency was quite behind, and we've had to, had conversations with the agency staff to confirm that. So don't let that hold you back. But if you just submitted something that's and you won't hear before the end and won't know one way or the other before the end of our, in this case, October 30th and end of our application period, then I would suggest waiting for the next round. But if you have already heard and you just haven't received the official documentation, then I would say it's probably worthwhile to move forward on applying.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, we'll just give it a couple more minutes to see
Sure.
if anyone has any other questions that pop up. This has been really, really helpful. And going down the list of the folks who are here, I do see a lot of our client companies or companies that we've known for a while, and a lot of SBIR and STTR awards are out there, and we just want to make sure that we get the information out that Oregon is helping support with some additional funds.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to spread the word, and it's a great way to increase those federal dollars. And as I said it in my presentations, non-dilutive support, which is often quite desired for early stage companies.
Nice when you don't have to pay it back.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions out there. I know we all appreciate you being here today. We appreciate your information. You said you're going to update the slides and then send them to me, and then I will send them out along with the link to the recording later on this week. So be on the lookout for that in your email. And then, like I said, feel free to share with others. There's people out there that don't know that this program exists. So we really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much, Jordana. And thank you to everyone who attended today. I'm going to pop a link in the chat. We have a lot of events that come up, and we have quite a few coming up soon. And so we'd love to see you at another event, and hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.